Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So good to have everyone here. Welcome to Ask Your Guides. So the first 3 to 5 minutes, we're just gonna chill and introduce ourselves and our offerings here on Insight Timer. And then after 5 minutes or so, we'll go into the actual podcast episode. Um, so hello, everyone. Violet is here. She's behind the curtain. She is the Wizard of Oz, um, doing all the tech. So thank you, Violet, for that. But here on the chat, let us know how you're doing. Let us know where you're joining us from. Um, Today we have Juan Pablo all the way from Mexico and Vasco, who is also here in Texas. I'm on the west side of Texas. And Vasco, where are you?
Austin, Texas.
Austin. Cool. So, hi, hello, welcome everyone. Feel free to ask questions as we continue and as we start the live and the session. Feel free to ask questions. I'll do my best to keep up with the chat. Hey, Jessica, welcome. Good to have you here. Melanie's here. Hi, Melanie. Hello. Melanie's here from New York, another Insight Timer teacher. Who else is here? Suleiman is here. Hi, Suleiman. Welcome.
Hello, Sulaiman.
Oh, yeah. He goes to your lives too.
He's also a good friend of mine.
So just so you know, Vasco, Juan Pablo is my mindful best friend. So welcome to the circle of friendship and brotherhood.
Thank you
the
so
last
much.
the last live session on my profile that I had with another teacher was actually with Juan Pablo, and our sound went, the sound, I couldn't hear him. Could you hear me, Juan Pablo?
There was something wrong with the sound, I
I
remember.
couldn't hear you, and I had to turn on the caption to be able to read what he was saying.
Oh,
But
wow.
Juan Pablo and I both have really thick accents, so sometimes it was just based on context. So we had a 45-minute conversation based on context on a live session. That was my last time using OBS. So yeah, after that. Hey, Michelle, welcome. Today we're going to be Violet says OBS misses you. No, I don't think so. Today we are going to be exploring emotions and learning to express emotions in healthy ways as men. So again, if you in the audience have any questions, feel free to ask them. I will do my best to keep up with the chat. So if you see me looking down, it's because I have two monitors and my camera is here, but I have one monitor here with our guest, and then I have the live session on this side. So let's see. Violet, are we good to start? Yes, no, maybe. Cool. Awesome. So let's start. You guys ready?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, ready.
Awesome. Let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ask Your Guides Men's Edition. Today, I have two amazing teachers, coaches, guides. I have Vasco with us and Juan Pablo. Guys, how are you doing? Please introduce yourself. Let us know who you are and how you're doing. And when I ask how are you doing, I actually mean it. So go ahead. Juan Pablo, how are you doing, bro?
Hey, well, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Juan Pablo Castañeda, and I am a mindset and meditation coach. And I'm doing pretty awesome, actually. I had a great morning, and I just arrived to my house, so I'm very stoked for the conversation.
Good. Awesome. So good to have you here. For those of you that don't know, Juan Pablo and I have known each other for a year, a little bit over a year now, and
Yeah.
he's my mindful best friend. So putting it out there. So he's taken, guys. Just kidding, just kidding. Vasco, how are you doing, bro?
I'm excited for this call. I think we're going to have some really important conversations. And this year, I rebranded to focus only on working with men. So
Love
I
that.
am a men's high performance coach and holistic health coach. I have certifications in neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, success coaching, and mindfulness and meditation. So I love talking about how to rewire our identity, rewire the mind, eliminating certain unresolved emotions, limiting decisions, fears. That's what I love to go deep on.
Love that. And it is an honor to have both of you here. I am a fan of both of you guys' work here on Insight Timer and outside. I know, Vasco, you've been doing some amazing stuff with your group of men in outside and in nature and truly connecting with one another and with nature. So it looks amazing. Juan Pablo does amazing at truly engaging people in storytelling and bringing the healing process into real life. So both of you guys are amazing. So hi everyone, my name is Alejandro. I'm your host. I am a health, wellness, and mindfulness coach, a meditation teacher, and someone again with a heart to create spaces for people, but especially men, to be just as they are and to truly explore the human experience, whatever that looks like, whatever that sounds like. Um, our journeys are all very similar yet very different. But it is in those similarities and those differences that we connect and we see each other and we mirror each other. So I am really excited for today. Today's topic is learning to communicate emotions. And why learning to communicate emotions? I think as men, um, it hasn't been something that we've been taught regularly. So I want to bring the question to both of you. Growing up, I know the three of us come from different cultural backgrounds. So growing up, give me a little bit about where you come from culturally and how in your journey growing up, how was the emotional expression? Was it something that was encouraged? Was it something that wasn't encouraged? Um, what was your relationship with expressing emotion as you were growing up? Vasco.
Yeah, so I originally was born in Bulgaria and I lived in Bulgaria until I was 9 years old and moved to America very suddenly. My parents got green cards. I was raised in South Carolina. And I come from a home where my father is extremely masculine, like a 90% masculine, and then my mom is extremely feminine. And so my dad, they work really well together. And my mom was one of those women and is one of those women that just she works, she takes care of the home, she cooks, and my dad works and he leads the family. So I would say I grew up seeing a lot of emotions being expressed for sure, especially on my dad's side. I got to see my dad express emotions, sometimes healthy, sometimes unhealthy, right? He came from a home where his father was very high up in the military. So it was very authoritative. He grew up in an authoritative environment and he definitely picked up some patterns of anger and just like commanding, which I had to be very aware of, and I still have to be aware of because I grew up with it. And so that's something I definitely have to be to work on and I've worked on because I grew up around it. But for the most part, I would say I have never been told not to cry, that men don't cry, or that men shouldn't express emotions. In my family, communication was great as far as like if you have a problem, let's sit down, let's talk about it as a family and
Good.
work through it as a family.
Awesome. So, such a blessing to have such a strong male figure, yet to have the freedom to express those emotions. Such a blessing, and something that it's not, at least in my journey, my personal journey, and working with other men, it's not very common to have that dynamic of, a very strong personality, masculine personality, who is also, who allows emotional expression to be in the household. So super
Absolutely.
interesting, super interesting. Love that.
And one other thing, Alejandro. So even though it was welcomed, it wasn't when it was expressed. Sometimes it was one of those situations where it's like it's my way or the highway. So it's like
Mm,
sometimes it wasn't always received well. So just throwing that
okay.
out there.
All right, cool.
Mm.
No, thank you for sharing. Juan Pablo, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's very, very interesting and exciting to be able to discuss these topics, and it's very enlightening how just by expressing our experiences we can learn so much. For me, it was also very interesting. When you talk about emotions and how I was able to communicate my emotions when I was growing up, the time that comes to my mind is when my brother passed away because I was 11 or 12, and my older brother passed away. And it was awesome in the sense of we freed ourselves. My mother and my father were like, you know what, Juan Pablo, and my sister also, I am devastated. I am so sad. And that is why I am crying in front of you. And that is why I'm hugging you. So that experience really showed me, it made me really understand how powerful it is to be able to accept your emotions, and the freedom that we have of saying, you know what, I am just so heartbroken, and I am crying because of that. Because we also relate crying as something negative or something not desirable or whatever. But the fact that my parents were so open and transparent with me, and they were so sad because of the loss of my brother, lost quote unquote, because he's still with us, was so beautiful, because we continue to learn that, well, being heartbroken is not fun, but it is valid. And it was also a beautiful experience for my family to come closer. So when I was um, a child, that's what comes to my mind, to be honest.
Awesome. No, so such a beautiful experience, given the circumstances, to be able to have that, again, that environment where there is freedom of expression. I myself, so I was raised and born in Puerto Rico, and I
Mm,
grew up in a single mother home. So my mom was a single mom, and I was blessed enough to have always a safe space to express myself. Um, and I was at home, I was never told, like, boys don't cry, or you know, be a man. That that conversation and that message was never given to me at home. However, at school, it was a whole different dynamic. I've always been very much in tune with my emotions, very much someone who felt deeply. And as I got to maybe my teenage years, I began to notice that it was not the societal like acceptable thing to do to express emotions freely. So I began to start wearing public masks, and I began to truly trying to define my own expression of masculinity. I began to only express anger in very unhealthy ways. So
Mm,
if I didn't feel heard, I would yell and scream and get really loud out of hey, I'm here, hear me out. Um, so I was blessed enough to have a household who always encouraged open communication, and my tears, my laughter, even my anger when justified was welcomed. And my mom was really good at guiding me in how to, okay, that's fine. I understand you're upset, but is this tear worthy? Not to say don't cry, but is it really that truly bringing things into perspective, even as a child? Um,
yeah.
so my relationship with emotional expression went from growing up in a household that it was very acceptable to only expressing anger in unhealthy ways as a teenager, early adulthood, then into finding myself again and allowing myself to be who I've always been, which is this human who feels deeply and who is completely in tune with those emotions. Um, so
Mhm.
I am I am a crier. So I cry and I love, and this might sound weird, but I love to cry. Not because I like being sad, but I cry for everything. If I'm super happy, I'll start crying. I'm like, this is so awesome. This is so great. So I it's something that I encourage with my
Yeah.
clients and in with my own friends. Like, if you feel the need to cry, please do. Um, so anyways, that's just me.
Mm.
But yeah, on the topic of crying, what is your take on crying? What is your take on crying? Since we're talking about it.
Well, I also love crying. I remember I this weekend I was watching Willy Wonka, the new one, and I cried so much. It was so beautiful. And I remember my relationship with crying. And what I would like to say is that I cried so much because I was encouraged by my parents when my brother passed away. Before my brother passed away, I didn't used to cry at all, or maybe one time or two times. But when my brother passed away, I cried for so many days, so much. And I'm talking yelling and crying, crying, crying for so much. And then it was like I expressed every emotion. I was so happy even with the loss of my brother. So I had to wait 4 years, I remember, until I watched another movie which made me identify again. And it was a movie about a person that lost a brother. So that's when I cried again, and I cried very, very much again. So I remember, you know what? It feels so cool when I cry. After crying, I feel so relieved and so satisfied. And I think that's a wonderful thing to realize, that whenever we cry, we do release tension, we do release something, and it makes us feel so much lighter. So it is very, very, very beautiful to honor when you have the desire to cry in a way.
Right.
Mm,
What about you,
mhm.
Vasco, and your work with men,
Yeah,
especially working with groups of men? How does that look
yeah.
like in
So
your
this
in
is
your
how I
territory?
feel about crying. I relate it to yin and yang. I feel like the yin and yang is a big teacher in my life and for us in general, for all of us. And when we're on one side of the spectrum all the way, whether if we don't cry at all or if we cry all the time, I think it could be harmful.
All the
And
time.
so I grew up with in seeing my grandfather, who was in the military. He actually was just like you, Alejandro, and he cried out of happiness. I remember us being in family dinners, and he would usually have like a couple of he would have like a shot of moonshine or whiskey, and he would become like really giggly and happy, and he would just and then after the second shot, he would start crying because he's so happy. Then after the third shot, started getting angry. After the fourth shot, it's like throwing
Mm.
plates. But
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
that's an example. As far as my dad, I literally have probably seen my dad cry only like a handful of times in my entire life. And the very first time I saw my dad cry was right before I left his house to go to college, where I really spoke my mind. And we had a massive argument. And I
Mm.
shared with him that like, I can't wait to go to college and live on my own. And he literally like cried because of how hurt he was, and that actually broke our relationship for about like 4 years.
Mm.
And it was very difficult. It was very difficult how hurt he got. Um, and as far as crying for myself, I would say I'm not a crier, but I definitely see how there is men and women that when you cry, it's a way of feeling, it's a way of releasing, right? And so let's break that out even more, because if you're crying out of happiness, you're feeling it, you're connected, you're grounded, you're aware of what's going on around you, and you express those emotions through your body. They move through your body, and then you have the tears come up, right? Same thing if it's something that you're sad about, it can come through. But then I think that's a very healthy way of crying and perceiving crying. But then we can have someone that is stuck being as a victim
Right.
in life, and they
Yeah.
have a lots of thoughts that are circulating, and they're constantly focusing on the past of who did them wrong, how they did someone else wrong. They're focusing on living in guilt, fear,
Mhm.
hurt, sadness, and that might lead to depression and crying, right? I went through a period of depression when I was in my late 20s, and there was definitely a lot of crying there, but a lot of it was a result of me being stuck and
Mm.
me reliving certain thoughts that were creating those feelings, and that was harmful to me. And so I
Right.
think it's important to realize where the tears are coming from.
Mm.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. I know for me, there was a time that I, in during my teen years, I was wearing so many masks that um, I was either really angry or I was just like the clown of the group. And I would go home after hanging out with friends or whatever. I would go home and just start crying because I felt so empty. And I felt like I had like people were, because I was the funny one of the group, people were no longer, I wasn't laughing with them. They were laughing at me. So it was definitely from a like a victim mentality. I was victimizing myself by my own, and there was a lot of unhealed wounds in that dynamic for my own self that I had not dealt with. A lot of trauma, unprocessed trauma. So I absolutely agree that there is a balance in expressing emotions and how we express those emotions. I know for me now, sometimes the best way I can express an emotion, it's through journaling.
Mm.
Sometimes those emotions are not for me to share with someone else. It's for me to process. And either I process in my quiet time, in meditation, or during yoga, or whatever it is. But mainly, if I understand, knowing the wisdom of my own, of who I am, and the wisdom of wholeness within me, sometimes that emotion, whatever it may be, a positive emotion, I say that in quotations because I think all emotions are just messengers. There's no good and bad.
Yeah.
Um, but sometimes the emotion is just for me to process, and the best way to express it is by myself. And and i and i think that's okay too. I think when we talk about communicating emotions, it's not always about expressing it to other people, especially when the recipient of my expression might not be ready to receive that. So discerning the time and discerning how to express emotions, I believe, is also really, really important.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I love it. I love it so much. It's so, so interesting. I mean, the what we're starting to touch is the relationship between our thoughts, our mind, and our beautiful sacred heart, which is the center of our being, right? The seat of our soul. So I think our mind is always in communication with our heart, and our emotions are creating thoughts, and our thoughts are creating emotions. So the more that we think in negative, the more that we feel uh, challenging emotions, right? So I love it so much because I think for me, it's been very challenging how I have been in a situation and then I feel so much emotion and then I deal with it and I heal. And then another situation and I go into so much emotion and I feel so triggered because of one little tiny thing. So I started to realize, okay, what am I believing that is truth? So that I
Mm,
can be feeling that emotion. So the more that we become aware and aware and aware, oh, you know what? I am feeling devastated. I am feeling so broken. I am feeling so lonely and sad and alone because I believe that I will not find any other girl just like the one that I had and that decided to tell me that I am not the one for her,
right,
and and that makes me, of course, feeling devastated because of what I am thinking is truth, not because of the actual situation.
right,
So yeah, by refining our mind and our consciousness, we can start feeling better and better. And that's where communication enters because the more that I communicate my emotions, the more able that I am to see, okay, you know what? I am feeling like this because of this
right,
and and I can see it because I am communicating it. And that's why coaching is so powerful because we are communicating our emotions.
Mhm.
So the more that we communicate, the more that we can see, and the more that we can see, the more that we can refine how we thinking that is truth. Because what we think that is truth, that is real for us.
right. It's so interesting to understand what is like our beliefs on emotions. Like for me, one of the things about, for example, anger, when I started my like very intentional healing journey, was understanding that and relearning that anger is not a quote unquote bad emotion. It is a messenger. Um, Understanding that sadness is not a bad emotion. It might be an unwanted emotion, which is also valid. Some things I don't feel comfortable feeling. I don't want to feel angry. I don't like feeling angry. However, when I do feel angry, communicating with the emotion, communicating with myself, and saying, okay, I feel a certain way. Why do I feel this certain way? What is the underlying emotion? For me, a lot of times, anger came out of embarrassment. I felt
Mm.
embarrassed, and the best way to express embarrassment was through anger. But anger
Mm,
was not my primary emotion. I was just feeling embarrassed. I was feeling embarrassed in the hockey field. I was feeling embarrassed with my friends. So I would get angry at my embarrassment. Um,
yeah.
so how do you? I know all three of us are coaches. How do you guys help, especially men? I know we all work with both men, women, and everything in between, or none of it, non-binary humans, or but how do you guys teach or guide others into learning to express emotion, if that's something that
Mhm.
you guys
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah, I'd like to touch on this for sure. and three things are coming to mind. One is breaking down a little bit further exactly what Juan and you, Alejandro, went into is like those emotions are messengers. So let's give a couple golden nuggets to the audience right now, to the Insight Timer audience. We're so grateful for you. This global audience of 27 million people on Insight Timer that I am honored to be a part of. And something that really helped me build up my emotional intelligence. And right now in the world, there is an epidemic for men. Men are hurting on so many levels, emotionally, physically. Their hormones are being destroyed through everything they're absorbing. But women all over the world, I know you've seen it, there's so much momentum. Women are healing. Women are doing the personal growth and development. A lot of women, they're journaling. They're having women's circles. And guys are also doing that, but it's a little bit on a smaller scale. And
Yeah.
so one thing that really helped me build up my emotional intelligence, which when you have emotional intelligence as a man, we're talking about being grounded. We're talking about understanding what you're processing, and we're talking about understanding reacting to reality and understanding other people's reality and what they may be perceiving, which is a little bit more advanced, and there's certain things to help you get there. But one big thing was the 5 second rule from Mel Robbins. And the 5 second rule is it's not dropping your food on the ground and waiting 5 seconds and then you eat it. No, it's another 5 second rule. So it's proven, it's proven with science that our body, it takes about 5 seconds on the average for thoughts to become emotions. So let's say I have a thought of, I'm not good enough. Uh, in about 5 seconds, that thought is going to release certain hormones in my mind and my body, where now I start feeling insecure. I could feel sad, I could feel angry, I could feel certain emotions that are a result of that thought. Okay. So it's thoughts create emotions. Then those emotions become actions. And then those actions become results. One more
Right.
thoughts become emotions, emotions become actions, actions become results. What's an example of that? An example is, let's say that I'm really overwhelmed and stressed out in life, and I'm just living life, but now all of a sudden the stress is adding up, and I don't have a way of releasing it. And so it comes to a point where I want to be healthy, but I emotionally eat and I go and eat something that I really shouldn't be eating. And I know that, but when I do it, it's my vice. And now I'm in the moment and I'm loving it. And after it goes away, now I'm feeling guilt because of that. I'm feeling anger because I didn't stay true to my words and what I'm focused on doing. And that is the results. And then what that leads to is also gaining weight, which is the opposite of what I want, right? So that's a pure example of that. And when we start becoming very aware of what thoughts are creating certain emotions, that's when we can really go deeper. You can work with a coach, you can journal, but you can catch it and you can train your brain for it. As soon as you start to feel a certain emotion, whether it's anger or sadness or fear or hurt or guilt or jealousy, whatever it is, just think about, what did I think right before that? What kind of judgment was I processing? What was that picture that I was processing in my mind? What was my truth? And that's where the magic lies.
Absolutely. I It's so important to understand that emotions start with a thought and that we can hijack in a way our emotional response to those thoughts if we are, and that only, for me, that only comes through awareness. I know sometimes in life, and I know I've been there, we just go through life in autopilot, and we're our brain is just going and going and going, and we're feeling and feeling
Yeah.
and going and feeling. But it's truly the pause, the breath, the awareness, the understanding that I'm not doing things in automatic. It's always first a thought, and I have a response to that thought. I have an emotional response and then a physical action. So absolutely. What about you, Juan Pablo? What's your approach to this?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to add in my experience is also very interesting how, yeah, my thought is creating my emotions, but then my emotions, let's say it's anger, and I was thinking that I don't know how is it possible for the people to or for the supermarket to have only three people giving you groceries instead of more people ready to be there for me, right? And that gave me anger, and now I'm feeling anger, and now I start thinking, yes, and also the street, also the street. The street is also not good. And you know why?
Right.
Because of the government. And the government is making so many things. For example, that other thing, right? So now I'm not thinking one thing. I'm thinking 5 or 10 or 7 or 1 million. So now my anger is more, it's heavier, right? And then I'm not thinking 1 million thoughts. I'm thinking more. So it's also interesting to understand that our anger, it's also creating thoughts and coming back to the beautiful question that you were
Go
inviting us
on. Go on.
to answer, because you did ask something very beautiful, which is how do we kind of guide people through learning to communicate our emotions, especially when it's hard, right? Because so many times it's very hard, especially when you feel not accepted or when you're in a situation of threat. For example, one time that I felt really afraid of expressing my emotions was when I was dating a girl, and she was not accepting so much of myself. She didn't want to be my girlfriend, but I did want to be his boyfriend. And every time I was about to express, you know what, I really have feelings for you. I want you to be my girlfriend. That's when I was more afraid of. I was even shaking. I remember being on her office was very difficult for me, and she could sense on that, right? So when we feel threatened or where we don't feel very safe because we believe that it's wrong to feel what we feel, then it's not easy to communicate. But I wanted to make a big emphasis in the idea that for me, we don't need to learn to communicate our emotions because we know, right? We just need to practice it. We just need to allow it. And we
Mm,
allow it when we feel very accepted, very like in knowing that we all are in our own path, we're in our own place, right? Sometimes we feel like it's not okay for me to be where I am. I need to be more perfect or or stronger or wiser or have more money or more beauty or more muscles or more girlfriends, right? Or more clothes or whatever. But it's okay to be where we are. And when we have that sensation of, you know what, it's okay to be where I am, then, and I feel accepted and not judged, then communication happens so easily. So it's more about, for me, it's more about creating those spaces where we feel safe and understood. And communication just happens so naturally. And it's so beautiful what happens when we communicate. So beautiful. So much magic happens. When you allow yourself to express your mind, you become aware of so many beautiful things about
I
yourself and about others and about, yeah.
I really like what you said, and it really it hit me like a ton of bricks when you said we're not we're not learning how to communicate emotions, because even for me, as you said it, I'm looking at myself and my own journey. I didn't learn to express emotion, which is funny because the topic today is learning to communicate emotions, but I had to remember how to communicate those emotions. I had to, for me personally, the process of listening to my inner child and allowing my inner child not only to heal, but also to invite play, which is something I know, Juan Pablo, you talk a lot about in your journey, but inviting play into the journey. It's not that serious. It doesn't have to be. It can be
Yeah.
fun. It's tough. And healing sometimes sucks, because healing sucks because it hurts, especially those of us who have carried a lot of unresolved trauma in our lives. When we face the music, when we're facing these things, it sucks. And that's real. But there's also a playfulness that can come into the practice. I know for me, I work a lot with men who are or have been incarcerated. Um, and we're learning not only how to communicate, but we're also working a lot with empathy and like victim empathy and whatnot. And it's really interesting to see the transition from like Vasco, I think it was you that shared the shame and the guilt of our actions against others. It's really interesting and beautiful. It's a beautiful transition to see the journey from I don't see how my actions have affected others. Then I transition into I understand. Now I feel shame. Now I feel guilt. Now depression might even be there in the process of realization, like, oh shit, like I've caused some harm. But then the transition to healing and self-forgiveness, and understanding that shame is not the same thing as remorse, understanding that it is okay to feel remorse for actions that have affected others. And we've all have said something, done something that have negatively affected others.
Yeah.
And having remorse and not allowing shame to be at the forefront. So it's a beautiful journey for me working with others. And it's the remembrance of when you were a child, how would you express this? And that's actually a practice that we do in group sessions. When put yourself in this situation, how would you have reacted as a child? And a lot of times that's when we start working through limiting beliefs when it comes to emotions and expressing emotions. Um, and then creating, I know Andrew, who have been here before on the podcast, Andrew is said that safety is essential in the comments, creating that safe space for people to be just as they are. And it's really interesting for me personally to work in a prison environment and creating those safe spaces with people who, outside of the four walls that we might be in, are quote unquote enemies, quote unquote defending each other, defending themselves from each other. But in this moment in time, we're safe to be just as we are. There's no there are no limits to who we are as emotional humans and emotional beings. Um, so yeah, it's a really interesting journey, and it's also a very individual journey for those of us. I know the three of us work one on one with people. The group setting is very different than a one on one session. So it's a very, again, it's a very similar experience in very different ways, because we all have different backgrounds. But we have a question from Angie. Angie in the comments share, when our partners, sons, brothers, etc., are hurting, processing hurt, sadness, anger, etc., how do we best support them and approach them with that support? Again, when our partners, sons, brothers are hurting, processing hurts, sadness, anger, how do we best support them and approach them with that support? Who wants to take
Mm.
it?
I'll take that one. I love that
Go for it.
question. I think it's an important question. Thank you for
Yes.
asking it. Well, I think either men or women, but we are focused on men. When we display that hurt and you can tell, you can intuitively tell where there's physical signs. I think one of the best things to do is authentic relating. With the authentic relating, you ask a question, which is, how would you like to be supported? Would you like for me to listen, or would you like advice? And
Yes.
here's something that a lot of men, most men in the
Yeah.
world, when their partner is expressing such emotions, or you can tell they're hurting, they go into giving advice. They go into giving advice, and it's not always the right thing to do.
Right.
And it's not always the best thing to do. The best thing is to see, what does that person want? Because just by providing a safe container where you fully listen, you're not multitasking, cooking dinner and doing it. No, you are looking at the man in the eyes. You are right in front of the man, and you have his full attention and his presence, and he has your presence. And that's where he expresses it. So I believe it starts with that question. And there's so much healing that can happen as long as they're given that container to express why he is feeling like that, right? Sometimes he might say, yeah, I do want advice, but you'll be surprised to see that a lot of times it's just a container of listening and those emotions coming out, expressing how he feels, because we, as men, we stay in our head a lot. We
Right.
calculate stuff. And
Right.
we don't have that container too often to where we can express. A lot of men don't even want to go to therapy, right? Or do that work. And so they just keep sweeping stuff under the rug until it gets to the point where you're tripping over that rug, okay? And so that's what I suggest for that.
Absolutely. 100%. And that comes, I think, as men, we tend to be fixers, and someone comes up with a problem and we are ready to give advice. And that is something that
Yeah.
I have had to learn as a friend, because my friends would come to me and be like, yo, this is happening in my relationship, my kids, blah, blah. And I was hearing what they were saying. I was not engaged in listening because I was ready. I was like, okay, so how are we going to fix this? How are we going to fix this? And sometimes all we need to do is be listened to. So asking the question, how do you want me to support you, is so important, because then again, I
Yeah.
think sometimes in the process of seeing others process emotions, we make it about us as the helper,
Yeah.
not about them as the feeler. And asking the question, how do you want me to support you, gives the autonomy back to them. It continues to be about them and what they're processing. So absolutely, Vasco, absolutely, 100%, absolutely. Juan Pablo.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful to just realize that, even let's suppose that I'm very angry and I go to you, Alejandro, and you tell me, okay, how would you like me to support? By just listening to you, or do you want my advice? And let's suppose that I say, you know what? I want your advice. And you tell me your advice, it needs to really resonate with my heart. It really needs to be something that I go myself in my mind, and I go, wow, what he said was so truth. But I need to go there myself. There's no way that
Right,
you can take me there, right? So it's so beautiful to be really, really aware that even the most deep relationships, and the people that have been married by for 50 years, even though those couples, you experience your truth yourself, and what really resonates with you is what you really want, right? And there's no way to get there's no way that you can take me there. So you can offer so much wisdom, but I am the one that needs to go, yes, that is the truth. I
right,
am the only one that is capable to take me to that point where I'm like, that he said, really, really resonates with my heart. Of course.
Yeah.
And one very beautiful thing is that whatever feels great, whatever feels expansive, whatever feels open and joyful, purposeful, whatever feels like fun, that is what we want to find, and there's no one that can take us there. So all we can do to support our loved ones is to offer some space so that they can they can take themselves there. But even the best coach, even Jesus himself or Buddha, if Buddha and Gandhi had a lot of people that didn't resonate with them and they didn't listen to him, right? So sometimes it's not about what we are saying. We need to understand that everything that we say, uh, if the other person accepts what we said and receive it so beautifully, and we change their life in such a beautiful way, that's not up to us. There's no way that we can change someone's life without them changing their own life, right?
Right.
So even the best advice could be used to for someone to go, you know what, no one can help me, and that's the purpose. So yeah, understanding that we all have our own unique path, and that is so freeing, because then we stop trying to control and trying to fix people, and we stop trying to give so many advice,
Right.
because what worked for us and what really feels like truth and what resonates with our heart might not be what resonates with someone else's heart, or might be. So that is why it's so beautiful to communicate, right? And to
Right.
express, you know what, this is what really feels true to myself. How about you?
And it's to the point of, as supporters, as someone who is wanting to hold space for others, to support without attachment. Sometimes as spouses, as brothers, as friends, we support with the good intention of wanting a good change for the other person or a good outcome. And even that, we are attached to the idea of a change.
Mm,
And
mm,
sometimes in the support that we offer, the person might say, hey, you know what? Like you said, Juan Pablo, I do want advice. And then we give this amazing advice, right? A huge download from spirit itself. And they're like, okay, cool. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something else. And
yeah.
then, and then you're like, okay, so now at that moment, I'm engaged. Now it's because of my attachment to the support I've given. Now I'm frustrated. Now I'm like,
Yes.
okay, so thank you for, let's just waste time. Let's continue to waste time. So now it becomes personal, when the support should always be freely given
Yeah.
without attachment. And I know that's a process. I know for me as a friend first, and then as a coach, I've had to really work for the past 10 years, work really, really intentionally on detaching expectations from the support I offer, detaching my own personal fulfillment from the support that I'm offering. Because at the end of the day, there is free will. And I can
Yeah.
offer the best support that there is, but it is up to the person I am supporting to engage with that. And like you said, like Juan Pablo said, maybe it just doesn't resonate. Maybe I think I'm giving you amazing advice and it just doesn't resonate with you. Maybe right now, maybe in 10 years, you'll remember this one conversation and be like, oh, it makes sense. And then I get that text. Hey, do you remember that one time at the McDonald's parking lot that you said this? I was like, dude, that was 10 years ago. Well, yeah, no, it makes sense now. I'm like, oh, okay. So I was frustrated because it didn't, you went and did something else, but it just wasn't the right timing. Maybe the timing was
Yeah.
now. So
Yeah.
learning to, for me, as a supporter and as someone who holds space, learning to detach expectations from my support. I freely offer support. I freely create space regardless of the outcome, because the outcome is not up to me. And
Of
if I
course.
feel like it's up to me, then I have to work on my own belief system and why I'm supporting. Sometimes, and I know this is personal for me, and I'm gonna ramble real quick on relationships. Sometimes we are supported by a partner, by a parent, because they want to mold us into their belief of what's best for us. And our intuition know those things, and we might show resistance.
Yeah.
And um, and I know I've been that person. I've been the um, I can fix them kind of partner. I'm gonna stay in the unhealthy environment because I can fix them. Um, so so just food for thought. Food for thought.
Yeah.
Am I supporting out of free will, or am I supporting attached to a certain outcome, even if that outcome has really great intentions, even if I believe that this is part of that person's purpose and identity and who they are meant to be. Am I supporting because I believe that, or am I supporting just because it is it is what I feel called to do without attachment to outcomes?
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to share a phrase or an idea very quickly to round this idea because I love this. I love this one. It goes, God or the universe, however you want to call it, loves you so much that it allows you to believe that he doesn't love you or it doesn't love you. So we are so supported by the universe that we are even free to believe that we are not supported, right? And have that experience. So I think that's a beautiful representation of love, and I think that we can use that approach with our loved ones, especially to love them so deeply to the point where we allow them to feel or to think what they want, right?
Yeah, Juan, absolutely, absolutely, and Alejandro, just hearing about the work that you do with men that are incarcerated, wow, that just goes to prove, right? So we have some men that are old school in there, like you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm not gonna go into this work. I'm not gonna do therapy. I'm not gonna do coaching, but just this conversation of the three of us breaking down how the mind works, right? Like understanding how the mind works is a big part of mastering that inner. And if inmates can do it, right? There's certain things that line up. They volunteered, there's an intentional setting, right? They're there to do the work. It's a group work. The people leading it are really passionate about it, and that's the kind of people they are. That they love going deep. I can tell Alejandro loves going deep on stuff like that, and that's what you're here for in this lifetime. And there are men like us that are meant to escalate such awareness. And once you understand how the mind works and how other people's minds works, it becomes such a beautiful thing where transmutation, transformation, healing happens, right? I do have other things that I can go deeper into, but Alejandro, you're the host of this, so you
Go
guide
for
us
it.
wherever you want.
Go
Okay.
for it. Go for it. Go
All
deeper.
right. So, one thing that we've talked about is how when we are living life, there are certain things that happen to us during every day, which can cause thoughts that can cause emotions, and right? And it's being aware of that, that we can navigate that. And then a lot of that can also be affected by our belief systems. Let's go deeper. Let's go into the identity. Let's go into the values. Everyone has their own truths. Everyone has certain fears or beliefs. It could be empowering beliefs. It could be limiting beliefs, right? And so some people can be very defensive and pessimistic in life. Why? Because they have been burned so many times. They have been done wrong so many times, especially men, right? Men and women. But let's take a look at a man who literally everyone disappointed him in his life. He disappointed himself. And so, because of that, Now there are walls, and because of those walls, that he is looking for what is going to hurt him all the time
Right.
and protecting himself, right?
Right.
Which can create a lot of those emotions. And that's where the deeper healing can really make a massive, massive difference in who we are and experiencing inner peace, experiencing self-love, and getting to a point where you do transition to becoming an optimistic person. Any pessimistic person can become an optimistic person. It's just how you perceive things. And right, there's so many healing modalities out there. But as we've lived life ever since we were born, and even during birth or before birth, there are things that happen to us that were traumatic.
Yeah.
They might have seemed traumatic, or they might have been simple, but because of our limited perception, they became traumatic anyway.
Mhm.
And so that's where coaching comes in. That's where therapy comes in. That's where being a detective of your mind comes in. And that's what I like to call it. And there are
That.
certain techniques that can really make a massive shift. So I want to talk about one of the things that I've seen is really powerful. One of my certifications is called time techniques. It stands for time integration for maximum empowerment. And what is this? This is kind of like a combination of neuro linguistic programming, NLP, and hypnotherapy combined. But what can happen is it's a little bit different than therapy. Sometimes in therapy, the model is you go to the therapist and you talk about a memory that you had in your life. By the way, every single memory that you have is related to an emotion. I dare you right now to try to think about a memory which is not related to an emotion. It's impossible. Okay. And
Right.
so a lot of times when people go to therapy, they are reliving experiences through their own eyes. It's called being associated. And what that can happen is it could literally re-trigger certain emotions. And so sometimes people leave just feeling reliving that over and over again. And there are very advanced ways now to completely eliminate unresolved emotions from your entire lifetime. And it's by first having a safe space. Second, getting to a different brainwave, right? Getting to the alpha or theta brainwave, where the brain is a lot slower, where it's calmer and hyper focused. And then the subconscious is open, and the subconscious can reveal. And with the right guidance as a coach, what I can do and what a lot of people, what other coaches can do is you can find the gestalt. The gestalt is the first time you ever experienced anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, unresolved emotions. All limiting beliefs come from limiting decisions. There's a time in your life where you decided that something is a certain way. And whenever that is uncovered by the subconscious, there's a specific way to find the learning or learnings. The subconscious mind is always trying to protect us. That's why those emotions can stay unresolved, and that's why there can be limiting beliefs and fears. But they're there for a reason to protect us. We experienced them when our mind was completely different, when we were much younger. Especially, most of them happen when you're 0 to 7 years old. And so just imagine how limited your understanding of the world was when you were a child and you had something traumatic happen to you. And now there is a barrier there that's preventing you and slowing you down in life. And so when the learning or learnings are uncovered, that's exactly what the subconscious mind needs in order to continue protecting you and to completely let go of the unresolved emotions. And when you do that, it becomes a domino effect, and it can actually deeply help unresolved emotions from your entire life that are related to anger or sadness or fear or hurt and guilt. And when you experience this, it's like a weight is lifted off your back, a weight is lifted off your shoulders. Some people cry, some people laugh, some people don't know how to process it, but it's so healing because trapped emotion that has been with you most of your life in your mind is completely released into the universe. And now you feel lighter, and now you're more grounded, and now you take your power back. And that's an example of doing some deep inner healing work.
Absolutely. Uh, yes. 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 And yes. I mean, absolutely. It's it's a journey. It's a journey. I wish there was some sort of magic pill or magic drink that we could take and it was like, oh, that's it. It's a process and it's a it's a guided process. I've learned through time that the healing experience is very personal.
Yeah.
Community and guidance, it's also necessary. It's a healing, it's very personal to the individual, but we can't go about it alone. I know I tried. I know for years I was aware of my unresolved trauma and I tried to go at it alone. And it was not till I found community that I was able to be validated in my own experience because my trauma was one of isolation. So I was trying to process and healed from a trauma, doing what I knew, which was being alone and carrying all of this alone. So finding the therapist, finding the coach, finding the community that said, you're not broken, you're healing. There's nothing wrong with who you are, but there is a better version of you ahead. I'll say it again. There is nothing wrong with who you are. However, there is a better version of yourself ahead. When those words were not spoken to me, but were modeled to me, then I was able to say yes to healing, to say yes to learning to love myself just as I was and loving myself enough to take the necessary steps to become a higher version of myself or a better version of myself. Um, but it came for me, it came through support and community. Um, and of course, a lot of inner work on the yoga mat or the meditation cushion or wherever. Um, but but yes, absolutely. Um, anything else you guys want to bring into the space? Any comments, any words of support to men who are listening, um, people who are listening who are in their own healing journey on maybe relearning to express emotions or just remembering to express emotions?
Well, I would like to say that just as we experience so much pain, and sometimes it's super hard, and sometimes it's very challenging, sometimes life feels like it's not something beautiful to experience. Just as we have those experiences, our life can change so fast. And I mean it like this. Just because we understand something, just because we understand one thing that was going on in our mind, now we go, oh, you know what? That's not truth. I was believing that every time, for example, every time that I pay something, I have less money. But now I realize that that's not even true because every time I pay something with gratitude, I know it's going to come back to me times by 3 or times by 5 if I spend it joyfully and powerfully. So I became aware of that. And that's truth. So now my life changed so quickly because every time I spend something, I feel that I am earning money, right? So we're able to change our life so quickly. And that is possible. So just as we experience so many things that are very hard, we can start experiencing so many miracles if we are who we are, right? And we are who we are. So we don't need to do anything to be worthy of change and beautiful miracles. So I would like to leave on that note.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Vasco.
you, Juan. Yes, miracles are possible. Miracles can be ordinary, and miracles, you are a miracle. So
Yeah.
I definitely have some golden nuggets for you. The first one is becoming more aware, right? So part of emotional intelligence, which one more time is one of the most important qualities that you can have as a man to help you lead from a heart-centered focus, and that women value in men, emotional intelligence. So let's look at something called pattern recognition, recognizing the patterns. At the end of each week, you can set some time to reflect on your week and certain reoccurring emotional states, like if you experienced anxiety or anger or hopelessness, triggers that set off certain emotions and stories that you've been telling yourself that might be going wrong. And so something to journal on that is, what story am I living out on repeat? What story am I living out on repeat? And then who would I be without that story? Okay, so that is pattern recognition. And then there's also something called environmental awareness.
Mhm.
Some great journaling prompts for that would be, what parts of my external life feel chaotic? Emotions are there for a reason, right? They're messengers. We've talked about that. And so what parts of my external life feel chaotic, broken, or unfulfilling? Example is, if you have money issues, right? Maybe you're thinking that you don't deserve wealth. Maybe you think that money is scarce. If you have relationship issues, maybe you're thinking that you're not lovable, that you can't find love, that people always leave you. If you're physically exhausted, maybe you're thinking that you must prove yourself consistently. So that is examples of how to build up that awareness and journal. Now, for the people on Insight Timer that have the pro membership, I have 3 courses that could greatly help you out. One course is all about taking your power back through forgiveness. We talked about how as men and just men and women, we have been burned, people have done us wrong, and we have done ourselves wrong. Part of taking our power back is forgiveness. It doesn't justify that what someone else did was okay, but it's taking your power back. So I have a course on that. Feel free to look at that, because there could be so much growth that results from peace, inner peace from forgiveness. The other one, the second course, is for men specifically, how to optimize your testosterone. If your testosterone is low as a man, then the chances are of you having a lot of emotions that are low vibrational emotions, where you are just full of anxiety and chronic stress. They can happen a lot more if your testosterone is lower. And there's a lot of things in the world right now that are completely affecting our testosterone more than ever. Testosterone rates for men have went down significantly in just the last 40 years, significantly. There's men in their 30s that have the same testosterone as men in their 70s and 80s from 40 years ago. I mean, it's an epidemic, and there's all kinds of stuff that we are consuming, from stuff that we're putting on our bodies, stuff that we're cooking with, stuff that is around us, that is decreasing your testosterone. You increase that testosterone, you're looking at feeling more confident, you're looking at feeling more empowered naturally. Okay, so that's the other one. All right, and then the third one is sleep. As you know, sleep is one of the most important things for your mind functioning correctly as a human being. And it is recommended that men get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. You go through a period where you're getting 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep, periodically for a couple of days, you're looking at greatly reducing your testosterone levels. And what does that do? Now you have cloudy brain a lot of the time. Now you have a lot more emotions that are bringing you down and you're not feeling as confident in yourself. So if you want to improve your sleep quality, I have a course on that. So those are the courses that I've created on Insight Timer, which are designed for you to take back your energy, for you to feel your best and feel more confident as you lead and build in this world.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for those of you listening and watching online, we'll have all the links in the description below to all of these offerings. Juan Pablo, anything else you want to bring to the space?
Yeah, well, I also have some courses on Insight Timer. One is called, one is in Spanish, Learning to Meditate. It's about the basics and starting to know your divinity. And the other one, it's called, the other one is about understanding the process of flipping your beliefs and reclaiming your power. So that's also very, very beautiful. And yeah, I offer one-on-one coaching sessions. So if you are interested, feel free to reach out via Insight Timer or yeah, via Insight Timer. My name in Insight Timer is Juan Pablo Castañeda. So you can message me there if you want. And yeah, it's an honor to be here.
Awesome. Again, thank you to the both of you for being here today and truly bringing your perspective into the space, bringing your wisdom into the space, bringing the years of your own personal work. Something that I value a lot about the men that I bring into this space is the fact that there is a sound, there is a frequency to those who have done the work for themselves. And it really resonates. So thank you, Juan Pablo, thank you, Vasco, and also thank you to everyone here who have been here live on Insight Timer. It has been an honor to be with you all today. My name is Alejandro again. I am your host. And yeah, follow us if you don't follow us and engage with our content. Thank you all so much for being here. And remember, you are loved, you are supported, and you're always, always enough. You're loved, you are supported, you're always, always enough. Have a blessed rest of your day, rest of your night. And until next time, bye.